You've probably heard the same advice 1,000 times. Just max out your 401k. It's the best deal in investing. And honestly, as a general rule of thumb, it's a fantastic place to start. But someone recently asked me the question, is there a point where it doesn't make sense to invest in a 401k? Like, could the fees ever be so bad that they cancel out the entire benefit of using it? And the answer is yes, that point exists. So let's dig into the tipping point, that moment where a taxable brokerage account with low-cost ETFs actually leaves you with more money than a high-fee 401k and what you need to know about it. Before we get into any of the tipping point math, there's one thing that never changes. If your employer offers a match, you usually want to take it, depending on your debt levels and interest rates being charged, of course, but that's a whole different conversation entirely. A 401k match is the closest thing to a guaranteed 100% return you'll ever get in your entire investing life. You put in $3,000 and they give you $3,000. I don't care if your 401k has high fees or a target date fund that looks like it was designed in Microsoft Paint back in 2003. You still take the match, because even a terrible 401k can't erase the benefit. That bonus money puts you so far ahead that the fees would need to be comically high to overcome it. The employer match is one part of the entire system that actually works in your favor. Plus, it's literally a part of your compensation. Not taking it would be like telling your employer, hey, you know what, instead of paying me $103,000 this year, just make it $100,000. So after you grab the match, the next smartest move before worrying about a 401k tipping point is to max out your IRA. It could be a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, or a backdoor Roth to get the money into your Roth IRA. This account is where you finally get to take control back from whatever circus your employer has going on inside their 401k. Because once you are in an IRA, you choose the investments. Not your employer, not your retirement plan committee, not the mysterious person who decided that the only international fund in your 401k should cost 1.3% and underperform its benchmark by the exact same amount. Inside an IRA, you can buy low-cost ETFs like VTI, VOO, VXUS, or whatever fits your strategy, all for around 0.03% in fees. That's basically free compared to some of the mutual funds hiding in 401ks. And this piece is important. The whole reason for moving to an IRA next is because it guarantees you never get stuck with bad investment options. If your 401k is great, awesome, you've got more choices in an IRA. If your 401k is trash, also fine. Your IRA becomes the place where you keep costs low to maximize growth. I'll have my Roth IRA playlist linked at the top right and down in the description if you want my brain dump on everything you need to know about it. Once you have these two pieces locked in, then we can start worrying about the tipping point of your 401k. The entire 401k tipping point decision really comes down to just 3 questions. Number 1, what are the total fees inside of your 401k? Number 2, how long is the money going to be invested? Number 3, what tax bracket are you in now, and what do you expect it to be in retirement? Because your tax bracket today determines how much money actually makes it into a taxable brokerage account, and your tax bracket in retirement determines how much of your 401k you actually get to keep. Let's look at each factor on its own first, then combine them to see how they interact and determine the tipping point. Fees don't just shave a little off the top. They compound against you every single year. A 1% fee doesn't sound like much, but over 30 years, it's the difference between a portfolio growing the way it should and one that looks as flat as the net worth for someone who graduated in 2015 with a gender studies degree. Let's say 2 people invest $10,000 and leave it alone for 30 years. George is stuck in a 401k with a combined 1% fee. Kimmy invests the same $10,000 into low-cost index funds, charging a 0.03% fee. After 30 years, George ends up with about $57,000. While Kimmy ends with about $74,000. That tiny 0.97% difference in fees left Kimmy with more than $16,000 ahead on just one $10,000 deposit. And that's why high-fee 401ks are so dangerous. You don't feel the pain up front since the drag sneaks up slowly year after year. Until suddenly, you're 60 years old, wondering why the heck you still don't have enough money for a decent retirement. Then you realize that you've spent the last 30 years in a high-fee 401k that charged you a premium to underperform a simple, low-cost index fund the entire time. Now that you've seen what fees do, we need to look at the other half of the equation, your time horizon. because it's the relationship between the fees you are paying and how long your money stays invested that determines whether skipping your 401k ever makes sense. Paying a higher fee for a short period of time isn't the end of the world. It's of course not ideal, but it's something that you can recover from. That's why when I review my coaching clients' portfolios and see that they haven't been stuck in high fee funds for very long, I'm super relieved because they can usually course correct pretty easy. But the real danger is paying that high fee for too long. That's when the drag compounds against you year after year and the damage becomes almost impossible to undo. It's just like how compounding helps you on the path to growing your money, except in the opposite direction. Here's the high-level breakdown. At 10 years, it's noticeable, but not catastrophic. High fees haven't had enough time to sink in. At 20 years, the compounding drag really starts to accelerate, and a high-fee 401k becomes harder to justify. At 30-plus years, this is where it gets ugly. The fee drag becomes so severe that a simple taxable brokerage account with low-cost ETFs can easily beat your 401k even after taxes. High fees don't destroy your wealth in year 1. They destroy it in years 20, 30, and 40. The last piece you have to understand before we can reveal the official tipping point is your tax brackets. Specifically, what tax bracket are you in right now, and what do you expect to be in retirement? Because this part changes the math in two completely different ways. When you put money into a traditional 401k, every dollar goes in pre-tax. But when you put money into a taxable brokerage account, you're contributing after-tax dollars. So if you earn $10,000 and you're in the 22% bracket, you can put the full $10,000 into a 401k. But you can only put $7,800 into a taxable brokerage account. That difference in starting amounts matters a lot, especially when we compare the accounts fairly. And depending on your tax bracket, that starting line gap gets bigger or smaller. When you withdraw from a traditional 401k, every dollar is taxed as ordinary income. But when you withdraw from a taxable brokerage account, you only pay tax on the gains, and most will only pay either 0% or 15% long-term capital gains rates, which are usually lower. So with the higher retirement bracket, a 401k hurts more. With the lower retirement bracket, a 401k looks a lot better. Here's how tax brackets actually move the tipping point. To keep this simple, everything I'm about to explain applies to a 30-year time horizon, since that's the most common scenario for someone in their 20s, 30s, or early 40s saving for retirement. If you are in the 10 or 12% bracket, you don't lose that much to taxes before investing in a taxable account, so your after-tax starting amount is pretty close to what you'd put in a 401k. But because your tax rate is already low, the tax benefit of a 401k isn't that strong. That combo actually makes the 401k a lot more fragile than you'd think. In the 10 to 12% brackets, the tipping point is much lower, around 0.4 to 0.5% in total 401k fees. Once your all-in 401k fee climbs above that range, a taxable brokerage account with low-cost ETFs can come out ahead over 30 years. So for lower earners, it doesn't take crazy fees for the taxable account to win. Now, I do want to note that in these lower tax brackets, a Roth 401k makes a lot more sense regardless of the tipping point. Locking in those low rates forever on all contributions and all future growth is usually a great deal. Your marginal rate in retirement is extremely likely to be higher than the marginal rate you're deducting at today. The middle tax brackets are where most working professionals fall. You lose a meaningful amount to taxes before contributing to a taxable brokerage account. But it's not extreme. At retirement, most people drop back into this range or in the 12% bracket. Across a 30-year timeline, the tipping point lands right around 0.9 to 1% in total 401k fees. Below that, the 401k still has the edge. Above that, a taxable brokerage account with low-cost ETFs starts to pull ahead. If you are in the 32, 35, or 37% brackets, the math flips in the other direction. You lose a ton to taxes before you can invest in a taxable account, but you get a huge tax break by contributing to a 401k with pre-tax dollars. So the 401k starts the race with a big head start. In these higher brackets, the tipping point jumps up into the 1.4 to 1.7% range. That means your 401k can have much higher fees before a taxable account would ever catch up over 30 years. For higher earners, a 401k becomes more valuable, not less. A taxable brokerage account usually doesn't win unless your 401k fees are circus level bad. What we just went over were the 30-year numbers. On screen, I'll show you the tipping point over other time periods so you get an idea of how much things change. For example, if we take someone in the 24% tax bracket who has $10,000 that will be invested for 20 years, then if his 401k fees are 1.49% or higher, it could make sense to put that money into a taxable brokerage account. But something really important to keep in mind, these numbers are only looking at the tax hit when you contribute money. They do not include the taxes you'll pay when you eventually withdraw the money from your 401k. In the next section, I'm going to layer that in and walk you through a real-world example using the 22% tax bracket. And that's where you'll finally see exactly how something like a 0.92% tipping point plays out in real life. Okay, now let's put everything together and run this scenario. To keep things simple, I'm going to use a 22% tax bracket when contributing, a 22% tax bracket when withdrawing from the 401k, and a 15% long-term capital gains tax rate for the taxable brokerage account. This is a super common profile, and once you see how the math works here, you'll be able to adjust it for your own situation. Let's assume you earn $10,000 of pre-tax money and want to invest it. If you put it in a 401k, you get to invest the full $10,000 because contributions are pre-tax. If you put it in a taxable brokerage account, you first pay the 22% marginal tax rate. So $7,800 actually makes it into your brokerage account. We'll use the same assumptions we've used all video. 7% average annual return, 0.03% fee for the ETF in the taxable brokerage account, 0.92% fee for the 401k, since that was the official tipping point that we calculated earlier. On the 401k side of things, after 30 years, it grows from $10,000 to a little over $58,000. The taxable brokerage account grows from $7,800 to a little over $58,000. Even before taxes, the taxable account is already slightly ahead. Not by a ton, just $129, but that's exactly what a tipping point looks like. This is the part most people miss. 401k withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income. At 22%, that $58,700 becomes $45,800. The taxable brokerage account only pays 15% tax on the $51,000 of growth, not the original $7,800 of contributions. So the ending balance after $7,600 is paid in taxes is $51,200. Here's the final comparison. The 401k after tax is $45,800. The taxable brokerage account after tax is $51,200. The taxable account wins by $5,300. And that is the real tipping point in action. All right, what you've seen is the clean, controlled, lab experiment math version of the tipping point. Now, before the pocket protector wearing tax nerds tackle me down in the comments below, there are several factors that can change these numbers, and they're way too complex to walk through in detail in a single video without turning this into a 3-hour Nancy Grace novel. Our example assumes 22% taxes when contributing and 22% taxes when withdrawing. But most people drop at least one tax bracket when they stop working. If you avoid 22% today, but only pay 12% in retirement, your 401k suddenly becomes way more attractive even with higher fees. Just that one bracket shift alone can flip the results. Most people don't stay at the same job for 30 years. So even if your current fee-infested 401k looks like it was built by someone who lost a gambling bet, your next employer might offer low-cost index funds and a more reasonable fee in general within your 401k. If that's the case, then you can roll your old high-fee 401k into the new plan or roll it into an IRA once you leave. And remember what I showed you earlier in the video. Paying high fees for a short period of time isn't the end of the world. If you'll likely switch employers in the next 5 to 10 years, it might make sense to grit your teeth temporarily and invest in your 401k knowing that you can roll the money somewhere better later. If you're in the 10, 12, or sometimes 22% brackets today, the Roth 401k becomes an absolute cheat code. You're paying almost nothing in taxes today to lock in tax-free growth, tax-free withdrawals, and no required minimum distributions. So even if the fees in your plan are slightly over the tipping point, a Roth 401k can still easily come out ahead. At higher tax brackets, so 32% plus, it becomes more nuanced. But the point is that the Roth 401k changes the math. If your retirement income is low enough to fall under certain tax brackets at the time of withdrawing money, your long-term capital gains tax becomes 0%. If that ends up being you, a taxable brokerage account becomes insanely attractive, and it can beat a high-fee 401k even more easily. We've been assuming you're buying something tax-efficient like VTI, VOO, or VUG in the taxable brokerage account because they have the benefit of low turnover, low dividends, and low drag. I need all of the young dividend bros to put their earmuffs on for a second.
All you gotta do is say earmuffs to them. Earmuffs. They can say whatever you want.
But if you start buying high dividend ETFs, actively managed funds, or anything paying out 3 to 4% income every single year in a brokerage account, then you're getting hit with ongoing taxes. That tilts the math back toward the 401k. The taxable account only works smoothly if you use tax-efficient investments. This whole tipping point conversation is really just a symptom of a bigger issue. Your 401k sucks because it only offers expensive, outdated investment options. That should not be acceptable. It's actually insane that fees can be so high that we would need to go through all of this nonsense I covered in the video. What a lot of people don't realize though is that you can try to get it changed. If your plan only provides high-fee mutual funds, you can campaign for the plan to add more low-cost options. There's an entire guide that walks you through exactly how to do this step by step, which I'll link in the description down below. It teaches you how to approach HR, what wording to use, how to build your case, and what data to cite. But just know that your employer isn't under any obligation to change anything. But it's possible this will get the benefits committee to take a second look. Because of these 6 different factors that we just went through, it could be helpful to reach out to a flat fee, hourly certified financial planner to get their opinion on where would be the best place to put your money. I'll put a link in the description to find one. But if someone came to me and said, Jared, you know what, I hear everything you're saying, but I still don't know what the heck to do. I don't care to figure out all of the fees, I don't want to talk to a financial planner, and I don't have time for this nonsense. Then without knowing anything about their situation, I would say to just put your money into a 401k and or Roth 401k. Forget the taxable brokerage account for now. Even with the worst investment options, it's still better to get something invested than to sit on the sidelines because you're overwhelmed and confused. Momentum beats perfection, and consistency always beats optimization. And once you're actually investing, then you can come back and fine-tune things when life isn't on fire. Please make sure to hit that like button before you go. Check out the description to help support the channel. Watch one of these videos on screen to help support the channel as well. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.